And you have to name them and identify them by the picture. So the first one is that figure 8 shape. So the figure 8 shape is a lemniscate. Lemniscate figure 8. The second one's easy. That one is the rose. Now, C is a spiral. It is impossible to tell which kind of spiral because what did I not put in the picture? An arrow. So we don't know which way that guy's going, but it is a spiral. The classical curves are the lemniscate rose spiral, and what's the last one? No, it's a limacon. If you say cardioid, you're going to miss it because a cardioid is a special kind of limacon, and this one in fact is not a cardioid because it has that interior loop. Okay, so these are the 4 classical curves. Gotta know them. Okay, figure 8, flower, spiral's a spiral, and this is the lima bean shape. All right, number 2, do you remember how to tell if something is a cardioid? Is this guy a cardioid? No, why not? The numbers don't match. These numbers don't match. So it's a no. It is not a cardioid because those numbers don't match. This can be a sine or cosine. That's irrelevant. This can be a plus or a minus. Doesn't matter. But these 2 numbers have to be the same. Where would you plot -2, 100? Now, this is that tricky thing. This is supposed to tell you on your circular grid, that tells you to get on the second circle, right? But because it's negative, that's problematic. What does a negative radius do? Moves you to the opposite side of the circle. And if we talk about the opposite side of the circle, we're talking about a how many degree difference? 180. So instead of plotting this at 100, it's going to have to be plotted at 280. 180 degrees different. A negative radius moves you to the opposite side of the circle. So if you're in quadrant 1, you're going to quadrant 3. Okay, remember that? How many leaves does this have? Okay, now you got to remember, in the equation of a rose, there are 2 numbers. And those 2 numbers mean something. Peyton?
Is that 4 leaves? Or the length is 4?
This tells you that the length of the leaves is 4. But it didn't say what's the length. It said, how many does it have?
5.
It has 5. There are 5 leaves. Now there's a special rule about that. Remember, does this number always give you the exact number of leaves? No, only if it's odd. If that had been an even number, like 6, there wouldn't be 6 leaves, there would be 12. Now we talked about all this stuff, guys. You need to go back and review it. Okay, we're not going back through all of it again. This tells you how long they are. This tells you how many they are. If it's odd, that's how many there are. If it's even, there's double that. This is not a rose. Do you remember with the R squared? Which curve is that with the R squared? Here's your list. It's not a rose. Which one is it? It's a lemniscate. That's a lemniscate. So a lemniscate looks like that figure 8. So it's going to be some kind of figure 8, right? Now we want to know how long these are. Remember we talked about this. Can you tell from the equation? See this guy right here? Isn't that the number that normally tells me the length? But because that's R squared, the length is going to be 3. equation is a lemniscate. If you have an r squared equation, it's a lemniscate. All right, which is the equation of a rose? And this would be a good time to come back and review. What did we talked about the lemmasines and the cardioids. And if you're a lemmasine, and I say, okay, are you a cardioid or not? Don't these two numbers have to match? So you have to have two numbers and they're separated with a plus or a minus. So if you've got a plus or a minus in your equation, you're a lemmasine. Okay? So if I look at part 6, the last one is not a rose. It's a lemmasine because it has a plus or a minus in it. Now, do you remember what's different about the equation of a spiral? Anybody happen to remember that? These equations look very different because they don't have a sine or a cosine. There's no sine or cosine. All of these equations have sines or cosines in them, but a spiral is something like just 3 theta. So see that first equation in number 6? That's a spiral. How do we tell it's a spiral? There's no sine or cosine. How do we tell the last one is a lemmasine? It has a plus or a minus. That means which one of these is the equation of a rose? The middle one. It looks like this. The other 3, remember there's 4. These guys are all distinctive. So I don't even worry about what roses look like. I know if it has an r squared, it's a lemniscate. I know if it has no sine or cosine, it's a spiral. I know if it's got an add or subtract inside of it, it's a lemmasine. The other one is a rose. It doesn't have an r squared. It doesn't have a plus or a minus. It's a rose. Okay? So these are the ways you can determine what's what. Name the 2 types of spirals, which is which. All right, let's start with the names. Do you remember the names? Archimedean. So a spiral of Archimedes. And what's the other one? Hyperbolic. What's the difference between them? One of them spins in and one of them spins out, right? Hyperbolic spins in. Archimedes spins out. Another way to think about it is in an Archimedean spiral, as you go around, you get bigger. In a hyperbolic spiral, as you go around, you get smaller. In number 6, which is the equation of a spiral, we already talked about that. The very first one. How do we know that first equation, r equals 3 over theta? How do we know that's a spiral? No sine or cosine. Find the polar coordinates for these points. Okay, so let's refresh our memories. What do we mean by polar coordinates? Polar coordinates mean r and theta. This is easy. You did it when you did the vectors. If we plot the point 3, -6 and make our triangle, this is r. So what's r? This is r right here. It's the magnitude. It's the hypotenuse. How do we find it? A squared plus b squared equals c squared. Square the x, square the y, add them up, take the square root. So 9 and 36 is 45, which is 3 root 5. That's r. Now, where's theta? Theta's right here. Look where I drew it. This is a big place where we make mistakes. This is theta. Can't find that right away. First we'll find this one. And how do we find that one? Second tangent, right? So that angle right there, I'll call it A. That angle, the tangent of it, is negative 6/3. So I will second tangent negative 6/3. And I got 63.43. If you put that down for theta, you're going to be wrong. What's theta? 360 minus that number, so it's 296.57. Again, all review, guys. Get those brains engaged. There's another one like that, just for some extra practice. We're going to find r and theta. So let's draw a picture of it. What's r? Square root of 10. Right? How about theta? Well, I don't know. This time, it's going to be this angle, right? So I'm going to find this one first. So the tangent of the angle is positive 3. So I'll second tangent 3. You guys with me here? You remember this? So second tangent 3, 71.57. Now last time I subtracted from 360, that is not what I'm going to do this time. I'm in a different quadrant. So I'm going to take 180 plus it. So that would be 251.57. Jordan, it's all coming back. One happy memory after another. Draw a freehand Lima sign. Draw a freehand Lima sign. What shape is a Lima sign? Lima beam. So you can draw it with a loop inside. You can draw it without the loop inside. You can draw it facing any which way you want. That's a Lima sign. Draw a freehand lemniscate. What's a lemniscate? Figure 8. So any kind of figure 8 you want to draw, upside down, up, straight up, sideways, diagonally, I don't care, any way you want to draw. How many leaves, some of these are repeat questions. How many leaves does this equation have? Obviously that's a rose.
24.
How many leaves does it have?
24.
24. Why does it have 24?
Because of even number doubles.
Even number doubles, that's right. How many leaves does r equal 4 theta have? Oh my gosh, Mrs. Ford's a tricky person. What shape is that? Do you see a sine or cosine in there? That's a spiral. Do spirals have leaves? No. No leaves. It's a spiral. How do I know it's a spiral? No sine or cosine. If you do not have any sine or cosine, you are not a rose. Find rectangular coordinates. For 3, 120. Okay, so there's r and theta, and we're going to find x and y. Now, this one we're going to do without a calculator. The second example we'll use a calculator for, but you need to be able to do this without a calculator. All right, but before we can even talk about that, how do we find x and y? Does anybody remember? What does x equal? What'd you say? Well, I'm going to use sine and cosine, but x doesn't equal just x equals r cosine theta, and y equals r sine theta. Kids, I told you before, I'm telling you again, you simply have got to remember that. That's used in a lot of problems in this section, so we have got to remember that x equals r cosine, y equals r sine. Now, there's nothing that is not new, because way back when I gave you that gold sheet and said memorize it, one of the things on that gold sheet said cosine equals x over r. If you bring the r over here, what does it say? X equals r cosine. That's just a different way of writing what was on that gold sheet. Don't you be laughing. You needed to remember that gold sheet. Okay, so I'm finding x and y, so x is going to be 3 cosine 120, and y is going to be 3 sine 120. Now, if I were allowed to use a calculator, I would just type in 3 cosine 120, 3 sine 120. But 120 is special. We can't forget how to deal with the special angles. So we're going to go through that again. And you may have something else you have to spend some time reviewing. Cosine 120. So I'm going to draw 120 degrees and make my butterfly bow tie. How big's that? 60. So I got a special right triangle there, and I'm supposed to remember what the sides of a 30, 60, 90 are. What are the sides of a 30, 60, 90? Across from the 30 is 1, root 3, 2. Guys, you gotta remember them. You gotta remember them. Across from the 30 is 1. That's on the gold sheet too. What am I always harping at you about? When you draw this, set this up, what do I always say? Be on the lookout for what? Negatives. Negatives. Any negatives in that picture? 1. The 1 is a negative. Now I'm ready to go. What's the cosine of 120? Cosine x over r, adjacent over hypotenuse. So the cosine is negative 1/2. What's the sine of 120? 3 over 2. So the answer to the question is negative 3/2 and 3 root 3 over 2. Now you can only do that if the angle I give you is special. In the second example, it says 5, 197. 197 is not special. So I'm going to have to use a calculator. I'm finding x and y. So what am I going to type into my calculator? What is x going to be? 5 cosine 197 and 5 sine 197. I just type them in, whatever it says, that's the answer. Is that okay? Okie dokie, Smokies. So tomorrow we'll have a quiz. It won't be nearly that long. but it'll be problems just like those. Okay, different kinds of problems like on here. It won't be that long, but that give you a little extra. Okay? All right, let's get our notes out. Let's do some learning.